Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. It's Spud here, and thank you so much for tuning in for another live creator interview from the fan site Army of Darkness and Evil Dead Comics in partnership with Hounds of Gore. Our guest today is Jeff Katz, who conceived and co-authored the 2008 comic book crossover series Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash, and its 2009 sequel, The Nightmare Warriors, bringing together characters from the Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Evil Dead franchises. Before I introduce Jeff, though, I would like to welcome my fellow screwhead and co-host, Jake from Hounds of Gore. Hey, Jake.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
As always, mate. What's been happening?
Yeah, absolutely. Love being here. How's it going?
Cool, dude. What you got behind there? Some
Some cool stuff. Yeah, over here I got one of my original pieces. These are both prints of my originals. The Evil Dead 2 original pieces over here. So I have some prints available. And then I got I had to break out some the sweet connecting covers for the Nightmare Warriors. And I got this pretty cool figure over here from one of my buddies.
Good man. Made the trip okay then?
Yeah.
You made the trip okay? Yeah, I just got my pile in the back. Excellent. All right. Well, Jeff Katz is a film producer, on and off professional wrestling promoter, and comic book author. Best known for his involvement with movies such as Freddy vs. Jason, Snakes on a Plane, Shoot 'em Up, X-Men Origins, Deadpool, and The Pope's Exorcist. Jeff has also worked with DC Comics on titles such as Booster Gold, and is the co-creator of the DC Comics villain Black Beetle. Based on his experience working with Freddy on Freddy vs. Jason, Jeff wrote a film treatment for a sequel to the film, which eventually evolved into a most excellent crossover comic book series released jointly under the Dynamite and Wildstorm imprints. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Jeff Katz. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Good to meet you guys.
Good to meet you.
Good to be with you.
Cool. No, thank you. So, Jake, did you just want to give us a little rundown on what Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash is?
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely set the scene. So, Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash finds Freddy Krueger now trapped in the mind of Jason Voorhees after the events of Freddy vs. Jason. Freddy seeks the Necronomicon for himself so that he can turn the world into his own nightmare reality. Come in Ash Williams in his quest to find and destroy the Necronomicon once and for all. Transfers to the new Mega S-Mart in Crystal Lake, which is soon to be renamed Forest Green. Firstly, can you please tell us a little bit about how and when you first came up with the idea for a sequel to Freddy vs. Jason involving Ash Williams? And can you tell us how it went from being a potential film to the comic form?
Sure. It's been a minute, obviously. It's been 20-something, which is horrifying. Like I realize how young I was when I was doing this. So in my case, I had started at New Line as an intern, had dropped out of college specifically to intern there with the goal of making Freddy vs. Jason. That was sort of the goal. And basically ended up in a situation where originally Mike DeLuca, but then Toby Emmerich and Stokely Chaffin gave me the opportunity to kind of get involved even before I had really even been promoted to an executive at that point. And even before, well before the movie came out, the operating idea internally was, if we're going to do a second one, it's Ash. And at that time, you've got to remember, there may be people that are watching this that are younger horror fans who don't remember, DVD was such a gigantic thing. And if you are a fan of Halloween today, or Dawn of the Dead, or Evil Dead, or really pick your catalog, John Carpenter's movies, your catalog classic horror, then you got to look at companies like Anchor Bay as an example in the late 90s and early 2000s, who did a lot to go and keep these titles alive. And so I would give credit to Steve Nadelberg, who's no longer with us, Jay Douglas, Steve Strom, the guys at Anchor Bay back then, who understood that there were huge, who, they were the ones, if you remember, there's an old version of you could get a copy of Evil Dead 2 where it was in the Necronomicon itself, like the case was the Necronomicon. They were brilliant. They did Sleepaway Camp, they did everything. And you could, I'm of the belief at a certain level, if you're making movies, be it as a studio executive or as a producer or whatever, your job's to understand your audience and read your audience and kind of know trends and where things were going. And so if you were really plugged into horror at that time, like I was a fan, so I'd go to conventions. I go to Ash was the only obvious, it was the only choice if you were going to have a hero, have anyone kill them off forever, right? Yeah. The only person fans would ever accept would be an equal, and Michael doesn't talk. And doesn't really, it's a different, we're all fans, like it's a different thing, Michael. It's a different tone.
Yeah.
That really Ash. And the other thing was, because they had the Easter egg already set up in Jason Goes to Hell, which was a throwaway gag, but the Necronomicon's there.
Yeah.
It just so happens that's the movie where Freddy's glove breaks. Like, it's there for you. So you'd be a kind of a fool to not take it. And to everybody's credit internally at New Line, like they all got it. I mean, I had to do like a presentation and a pack. I think I have it probably. Oh yeah, there you go. That was not planned. I did have that behind me. And like you basically had like this. In fact, yes, this was a Anchor Bay. Actually, hold on. No, this was a maybe internationally the Boomstick edition, but Evil Dead 2, and then if I remember correctly, Anchor Bay put out the one that actually had the first time you saw the cut, the extra ending where he wakes up in the post-apocalyptic, there's like a flying deadite or something, as I remember. So here, you can look, October 20th, 2003. All right, so but I'd already been laying groundwork sort of well in advance. And had already taken like Bruce Campbell and his partner out to dinner, but basically like here's an explanation on like, and this is all online somewhere. I know I gave one of these to here you go. Like Anchor Bay, I do a specific thing about them, like how key to their business basically Evil Dead was. So it's, I think that your job, I think it's a reason when you look at why the movie business is in the state it's in today, one of the real issues is you have buyers and frankly sellers who they're in such a bubble. They are not connected to the audience, to the fans. They detect their customers, quite frankly. And if I had any strength certainly as a studio executive, or even now today, where I'd stopped making movies for a long time and now suddenly I'm really busy again, which is hilarious. Like I am one of you. At the end of the day, we were talking before we went on, right? Like, I knew the stuff in your back. I knew it pretty specifically, even at my condo, right? You can't fake that. And so fans know that. And so I just, New Line, the last thing I'll say is like to their great credit, this is something that Bob Shea and Michael Wynn, was in the DNA of the company. Like, it didn't matter who had a good idea. You could be working in the mail room. You could be working in another division. You could be like, I was a floater. It didn't matter. And so like, even I'm doing a movie now that'll get announced formally, probably pretty shortly after the holidays, about a guy named Art Bell, with Paul Giamatti, and the directors are Radio Silence, who did the most recent Screams and Ready or Not. And like, those are New Line guys, and Matt Bettinelli, like I've known Matt and his wife, we all worked together at New Line. Matt was in the mailroom, right? So that was kind of the magic of the place. And so, you could go and I could take a packet of merch and send this to all the department heads and be like, this is why you gotta, this is what the street is talking about. Like that bullshit. Yeah. But it was true. And so and then ultimately, we negotiated for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And there was some pre-existing history with Bob and Sam and them on the original Evil Dead. But we made it was very real and very close. So.
Wow. Very cool. I just wanted to share this real quick if I can. One moment. Bruce Campbell had this to say way back when in 2005. This was bonus video, an extra on the video game Evil Dead Regeneration.
Okay.
It's a little
what system was this out on?
Sorry, say again.
What system was this out on? I don't remember.
Oh, this came out on it was on PC, PlayStation 2, and the original Xbox.
Wow. All right. I don't know that I remember this one. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're okay. You're okay.
I'm just ashamed. I like video games as well.
Here we go.
I'm sure. Is it some variation of denying that he was going to kill them at the end? Because I can debunk that right away.
I'm not sure.
With all love to him.
The rumor of Jason versus Freddy versus Ash is current. Pretty hot. That one's buzzing around the internet. It's tearing it up on the internet. And
that's really hard to hear.
Hard to hear? All right.
That's okay. I can act it out if you would like.
But you got to look at it this way. There's 3 franchises. So you got 3 batches of lawyers. So right now they're sort of yelling at each other, going, "No, we're worth more. No, you suck. We're better. We're the better franchise." I guess I could just say this: they're in discussion. Though. They're also trying to have peace in the Middle East too.
Yeah, he said it was all lawyers and discussion. And sorry about the audio on that. I hope it will be better.
They're also trying to what?
Moldies here.
I can't hear it.
Nice. I should just get like 1,000.
Cool.
What kind of production is this? I'm out of here. No, okay.
I thought that would work better than it did. Excellent. So yeah,
best laid plans. But no, was it basically? Yeah, I heard the beginning part. Like, yeah, we were negotiating for like 2 years. Like, it went on. It was on the sheet for a while, and in the end, ultimately, they just couldn't get a deal done. I think, but like to the point where like they wanted some foreign territories, and like we were having those conversations. So we all wanted it to happen, and ultimately, they just couldn't get a deal made. And then I know, like in the years since, obviously, there's been a bunch where he's been like, "Oh, they didn't do it because I would have to." I'm like, what are you talking about? It's in this. The entire point of this is that you win. That was I took Bruce and his friend David Goodman out to drinks at Chaya before I ever pitched this internally. So I don't know, like I'll blame it on the passage of time, but the idea was always that he was going to win. At the end of the treatment, he drives off with Freddy's glove dangling around his rearview mirror in the car.
Sure.
So that sounds like a pretty clear victory to me.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Jake and I have both read the story treatment that's floating around online, and of course the 2 adaptions co-written with James Kuhorik. You're obviously a massive fan of all 3 franchises. Can you tell us where your love of horror began way back when, and which of the 3 is your favorite, if you had to choose?
Sure. So I grew up in a little town called Franklin, Michigan, which, if you look at the beginning of the books, is even we reference it. And as it happened, I went to, so my next door neighbors growing up were the Raimi family. They lived in the house behind us. Sam's way older than not way older, but Sam's like 15 years older than I am. But they went to my high school. Bruce as well. Bruce's dad and my mom knew each other through like local theater. So in a way, if you were a kid growing up in Metro Detroit, you had them. Corman had been born there and moved. Bruckheimer had been born there and moved. But really, Bob Shea was the other one. And you looked at that, you went, okay, if they can come from my neighborhood and go to Holland, then I can go do that. And so I had started writing Bob Shea when I was like 8 years old. I met his dad coincidentally at a thing that my parents were at, kind of charmed him, made a bet with him about the Freddy's Nightmares TV show that I won. And as a result, he had to send my Elm Street ideas to Bob. And, Bob, I'm like in 4th grade. So what's he going to do? And he was like, oh, someday, we'll hope to hire you as a full-fledged Freddy creator, not realizing like, okay, I've got a goal. And so from basically 4th or 5th grade on, it was, I'm going to go make Elm Street. I'll start at New Line. I'm going to go make movies in general and start at New Line. And I was lucky enough that, in my teenage years, I caught a couple career breaks working first in talk radio in Detroit, then for a company called World Championship Wrestling for Ted Turner on TBS and TNT back in the day. and was able to kind of use that to drop out of college to go intern at New Line and kind of go off and running. And so anyway, long-winded way of saying, I want to actually give credit where it's due. I've always loved horror. I think at some level, because Sam and Bruce and Rob and those guys, I think Rob went to Southfield Lathrop actually, but because they all went to the middle school, our middle school, like we had Fangoria in the school library. Okay. So imagine today what that would be like to go to, like, a parent would lose their fucking mind. Can I swear on this? I apologize. I did.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I want to monetize you. I don't know how this works. Like, whereas my parents, to their great credit, were like, they didn't care. So they let me experience, I would go to horror conventions. I would go to buy horror makeup and liquid latex and fake skin and all, and I used to love all that stuff. And so I also was lucky enough, I had a babysitter, quote unquote, like if my parents were out of town, who would watch my brother and I for like a weekend. And her husband, in hindsight, was like the bootleg king of Metro Detroit. He had bootlegged every movie. You walked in, he had a room full of VHS tapes, clearly just bootlegged whatever system he had back then in the like mid 80s, like 1985, something like that. And so I would just go and just be like, pull out, I'm going to watch Jaws 1 through 3. Now I'm going to watch all the Universal monsters. Now I'm going to watch Halloween 1 and 2. Now I'm going to watch, you take your pick. And so it was really an incredible education. And I think for me, it has always given me a huge advantage just in terms of the business itself. Even today, even having been away from it for a bit, coming back to it and now like finding whatever level of success and being busy, like a lot of it just still just the shit that I learned as a kid. It just, you're competing against people who don't know movies, to be frank, which explains a lot about the state of the movie business.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Did James Cohort collaborate with you frequently when you're turning your story into the comic adaptations?
So the process, the way it works, because the treatment had been written obviously years ahead of the comics coming out, the comics only became, because the thing lasted on the internet. And to the great credit, like I didn't realize until the last few years just how much, if you go on YouTube, the idea that people have like animated it, and it's really remarkable.
They want it.
I think it would be worth it. Well, first and foremost, and I've said this to the guys at New Line, like they're in a world where Star Wars, I think was it Revenge of the Sith did like 25 million a couple months ago when they re-released it. Freddy versus Jason, you could probably get 7 to 10 out of a weekend today, just because it's been so long. You have a generation of kids that haven't seen them. So, they should maybe consider that. And if you got 7 to 10 million in a weekend, the trick is the Evil Dead, obviously those, but because they're at New Line, maybe there's a conversation. The Jason piece is complex, obviously, but at one point, we'd even said is animation, because they had been having some success with the DC animated stuff that was a little more adult, etc. But it's a great credit to the fans who've kept the thing alive this entire time. And so anyway, that at that point, it was basically a case where it was sort of like they're going to take my thing and directly adapt it. I maybe gave some notes or whatever, but at that point, he just sort of took my piece and went and adapted it.
Okay.
Gotcha.
That's sweet.
Well, the Freddy versus Jason versus Ash comics and trade paperbacks are arguably the most sought after books to feature Ash Williams. Given the issues with the issues with the rights for the Friday the 13th franchise in recent years, not to mention the Wildstorm imprint ceasing to exist, do you think we'll ever see these books reprinted?
No, I would be very surprised. You never say never. And here's the one thing you have going for you is that the business is shrinking, right? Like the contraction in the business increases the chances simply because it's the same reason why, even though it might take 20 years, you're going to eventually get a DC versus Marvel movie. Like it's just inevitable. Star Wars, at some point, a Jedi is going to end up in the Marvel universe. Like they're going to have a choice, right? They'll probably test it in comics first, right? And it'll if I don't know if you ever watched The Critical Drinker, I'm sure it'll be appropriate for modern audiences, like or whatever. But like they will, like it's inevitable. It's just the business is collapsing. So I hate to say it, if you want to see it, you kind of have to root for further consolidation. I also like, clearly there's the Jason writes themselves, and with, you know, and I love I know Sean Cunningham obviously was involved in the litigation and all that sort of stuff. Like, they're doing a short film. I don't know if you saw that. That's like for the anniversary. They're doing the TV show.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, well, then why aren't you just doing the movie? So I can't speak to the legalese as to why they're doing one versus. There's clearly a reason beyond just money. Because it's like a sponsor, and I think it's like a Angry Orchard or something is sponsoring a short.
Really?
Which, okay, I mean, cool, but like, it just seems like you could you could do the Crystal Lake Pamela Voorhees piece in TV and do a Jason movie, and get there. You have a bid. If there's a bidding war going on for Texas Chainsaw, which has been remade 5 times since 2003 with diminishing results at the box office every time. What would you get for Friday the 13th, right? Even if it's just called Jason Burns, right? Whatever.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I think at a certain level, you know, you're unfortunately you probably have to bet on that.
Fair enough.
Well, it kind of looks like you answered kind of my next question, which was, you know, obviously were you a little bit less involved with Nightmare Warriors than with its predecessor?
No, arguing more in a way.
Okay.
Actually, untrue. Similar process. The sense of like, they want to make a sequel. I always knew what I wanted to do if we were going to do another one. And so I'd have to go back and look, but as I remember it, like I did a treatment for it, and then similarly, James then took it and adapted it, and I gave notes. And I remember us having bigger issues with like art on that one, where you would have, because like there were things.
Two artists on that one.
What was that? I'm sorry.
I think there were 2 interior artists on that one.
Right.
So I think someone else came in at the end.
Right. Unfortunately, I've spent a little too much time with Spencer from Nightmare on Elm Street 6 to recall this, but it was worth it. And I think that at the end of the day, like it was, yes, there were deadlines that we're having an issue on, and there were like, James had, as with the original, James had the ability in being the ones, and I did this myself writing Booster Gold with Jeff Johns at DC, right? Where it's like, you have the freedom. In that case, we split pages, and he's literally writing half the book, and I'm writing half the book. We're just like, I'll take that scene, you take that scene, da da da. In this case, he's taking my treatment, and he's doing the dialogue, and he's almost a bit more of the Marvel method in that way, while having the direction given to him. So I'm having, like, I might be able to give notes, but dialogue and stuff's all coming from him. The story and the concepts are coming from me.
Okay.
Sure.
Blame him. No, I'm kidding. He's a very nice guy. And he's still working in comics, I think, pretty actively. I haven't talked to him in a minute, but very nice guy.
Yeah, absolutely. We're hoping to talk to him soon, actually. So watch.
I'm sure he's a good dude. I forget where he's living, in Pennsylvania. I forget where he is now. That might be Craig was there, but they all really nice guys. I actually talked to Nick Barucci from Dynamite within the last 6 weeks.
Excellent. Yeah. Nick's a nice guy. I've spoken to him a couple of times myself. Where was I? Towards the end of your story treatment, speaking of Sam Raimi earlier, there is a note that reads, if Sam Raimi requests, we can have Ash get sucked into the vortex as well, only to be dropped off in another distant time. Of course, that didn't happen, and Ash rides off into the sunset with the girl. But did you ever have any discussions with Sam Raimi about the project closer to? When it was happening?
They were again. I dealt with Bruce and Rob. Rob would run the day to day for the most part, business wise. And in fact, Rob and I like them all, but like Rob and I ended up. I was coming back from New Zealand on a movie for Fox. And I go into like Qantas, like, you know, their thing. I'm not paying, they're sending me business class, thankfully. And I get into the thing and I sit down and Rob's sitting next to me in this little pod next to me. So we just have a laugh and we're catching up and talking about it. And it was after the deal had fallen apart. So it was fun to go catch up. The idea was simply, hey, look, like, we'll set this up for you to basically go where if it's a one picture license, to use Ash as an example, we'll leave him wherever you want. So you can go off and go make Evil Dead, 3 or whatever at that point with him wherever you want. So we'll drop him. Tell us where you want him dropped.
Yeah.
Basically. So I've always, that's just my philosophy on any of these classic IPs. If you're working on them, is like, I just, as a fan myself, like, I don't need slavish continuity, but don't disrespect my continuity completely, right? Like when Jason turns into a little kid in the freaking
Manhattan
sewer, toxic waste turns you like, what is this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, give me the
out there.
Keep my continuity at least a little afloat. Tickle my pickle, if I can use the technical terminology. I apologize for the trigger word for industry term.
Funny on the other side of that, it's funny at the end of the Jason Takes Manhattan, he's of course in Manhattan, and then at the beginning of the next one, he's suddenly back in Crystal Lake again.
It's amazing. Well, he reset.
Continuity for you.
Didn't you know that toxic waste will do that to you?
Yeah, take you right back.
That's home. A little known side. Go rewatch Return of the Living Dead Part 1. It's a little known side effect, but yes, it actually shoots him. He's somewhere else completely. Yeah, no, the rules never, like, listen, I saw Jason Goes to Hell. If I remember correctly, I saw I'd have to check the release dates, but I believe I saw Friday. I saw The Dream Child, Elm Street 5, and Jason Takes Manhattan in like the same weekend. They came out with, I think, within a couple weekends.
They were very late 80s.
Yeah. And Jason Takes Manhattan has, I will admit, maybe my favorite kill in the entire series, when there was Julius is boxing him and he's like, take your best shot. I love that kill. And so that's my thing too, is a lot of, like, in anything I make going forward, whether it's Popes 2, Art Bell, whatever, like any of these things, like, it's about moments. It's about, to me, trying to replicate, I think, again, and what's lost, I think, what threatens the theatrical experience is, like, we need a full court press with kids, because you need to get them hooked onto the adrenaline rush of the moment with a shared audience. If they don't know that that's cool, and I can even just think in, like, whether it was going with my friends and getting our 3D glasses to see Freddy's Dead, which isn't even that great of a movie, or like when Randy Quaid flies in to save the day in Independence Day, and the fucking theater just goes, "Whoa, he's gonna do it!" It's beat, right? That's what it's about. And so, to me, like, it's just about trying to, like, that's the dragon you're chasing, that's the high, and it's the Anyway, like, it's what worries me a lot, frankly, just because you see it lost, like, the magic.
Well, yeah, today, right?
Like, there's a generation of kids that couldn't give two shits about Freddy or Jason. They don't know them.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I think too, with, like,
practical effects for that matter.
With, like, COVID and stuff, like, going to the theaters is pretty much, it's not obsolete, but it's very, like, on the downfall.
It's in real trouble, and it's and I say this as someone who used to go 3 movies a weekend in my prime.
Yeah.
Like, the entire thing needs a reconsideration. And part of this is also, like, I'm very critical of the way we treat our audience and our customers. Like, stop insulting your audience, court your audience. They have more options than ever. Like, there was once a time when horse racing was the biggest sport in the world and boxing was the biggest sport in the world, right? That's not the case anymore. Yeah. And things change. And I think that one problem I have with modern Hollywood that I've really made a point since sort of coming back to make movies again more frequently is to sort of combat. There's a real institutional arrogance. And you see it, I think, even in horror. And so for me and for my partners and what we do and all that, I think that there is if we want to save the business, like, you can't sneer at your customer. You got to kind of the customer's king used to be an adage, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that that's really the case anymore in a lot of people's point of view. So anyway, that's a long-winded. I don't remember what the fuck the question was, and
no, you're okay.
I just kind of pointed it out. You know, you're talking.
Are there super chats in there? Do they do that shit? I haven't even looked at like the chats. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with all this.
We'll get to audience questions soon. Oh, good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like main question, or one of the bigger ones, you know, will we ever see these characters come together one more time? You know, James Kahoric has expressed interest in kind of rounding out the series as a trilogy.
I mean, if the rights were there to be done, I would obviously never say never. Of course, I love it. I don't know, like, I viewed it as it's Freddy versus Jason, Freddy versus Jason Ash, Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. The Nightmare Warriors kind of is the trilogy, as I sort of looked at it.
Okay.
But I'm a horror, so I'm confident that there's a way. Like, you come up with something. I'm sure. To me, you know, I can't comment. I'm aware enough of stuff going on at least one of these licenses that, like, you got to probably let that resolve out first. But like, never say it's there's whenever these things come up, I'm reminded of in the wonderful Mel Brooks film History of the World Part 1. I highly recommend for people that they have not seen it. At the end of the movie, I will spoil. Gregory Hines shows up from like the Roman Empire to save Mel Brooks from the guillotine during the French Revolution. And he says to Gregory Hines, "How did you get here all the way from the Roman Empire?" And he says, "Have no fear, mon frère. It's movies, and movies is magic." And so, you know, it's movies. Like, it's you never, you know, if you had said when I was a kid, like, I don't read comics anymore, but I was a huge comic reader up until even into like my late 20s. And, you know, if you had said like when we were kids, you had a comic book movie once every couple of years, you know what I mean? Like, it was a big deal. And a lot of times they were complete shit. And so like, I remember my brother and I saying to my nephew, like, you have no idea how, like, even though they're not, the luster is gone, like, the idea that you could have a crossover movie with these characters done at the scale with the actors and the budget, and like, it would have been mind-blowing to us. So it's movies is magic. You know, never say never. I definitely, like, you know, there's paths. There's as a great Vulcan once said, there are always possibilities.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Absolutely. Regarding interior artist Jason Craig, do you feel he conveyed your writing or the writing and captured the story well? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, as I remember on the second movie, the first book looks better than the second just by virtue of having the same artist, right? Anytime. As I remember, he was like going through some stuff, and there was some like, so like, who hasn't been there? Like, I think at the end of the day, like, particularly in a world where it's like you don't have Corey Feldman's license, like, you got to be careful about that. So like the books have been well received, and we're having this interview today, this many years later, to suggest that we did something right with them. You know what I mean? So I can't really complain. Would I always prefer that you have, as a comic guy, a more consistent, of course, but like, that's such a like first world. What am I going to bitch about, really? Like, I've been very lucky. You know, I've got to live so many of my dreams. I think, you know, I'm playing with if it ended tomorrow, I've won. So all of this shit is kind of like, I'm not going to go piss on somebody for like, you know, that who knows what they were going through.
Yeah.
Sure.
So this would have been a big project either way, having to gather all these iconic characters, moments, references from all three franchises. Where do you even begin to like intertwine all those elements into like a single movie, say for Freddy versus Jason, and then for, you know, the comic series Freddy versus Jason versus Ash?
I mean, if you look at Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, it's a pretty clear 3-act narrative. It's set up to be a movie. It was written to be a movie. It was basically a functioning movie treatment. It is interesting in hindsight now where, you know, in the years since now, it's like, as I have story on Popes, I have story on Art Bell coming out, assuming if that gets made, but like I have it in terms of the deal. Like, I have become much more like, it was really the beginning of me both getting to, obviously, it helped with eventually getting to write comics for DC, but also in terms of the stuff I'm able to do now as more of a creatively oriented producer today. Like it was, because it was set up that way internally, I think everyone always kind of felt that it was a pretty easy, as long as you had, because we had the Freddie and Jason, Freddie was in-house already. We had the Sean Cunningham deal already there, and I loved Sean. I actually talked to Sean not that long ago. As long as you were able to get even if it was a one-picture license, the Ash piece done, you could have easily, you just would have hired somebody on to adapt the treatment and go. So it would have been pretty straightforward. The second book, we knew we were writing that just for comics at that point, right? Okay. So there you're like, I can go have a battle on the Washington Mall that, like, no, you could not. The point of making horror movies is to not make them for that much, right? So in comics, you don't have to worry about that.
No, sky's the limit. Yeah.
And so you have the scale and the scope. And it was, in many ways, I love Dream Warriors. It's my favorite of the series. I think it's maybe the best franchise horror sequel ever made, I would probably argue. And I love Crisis on Infinite Earths and, all the kind of classic crossovers, Legends, and even the bad ones, like all the stuff from my youth, Secret Wars and all that. And so it was kind of a way to do a crisis level event where, and again, just as a fan, I love continuity. So to have the survivors, like, I just know myself, like, I know I would have enjoyed it as a fan to see Alice work with, Tina, who work with, Tommy. I've always loved Tommy Jarvis. I love that character. So I just kind of was like, I trust my gut as a fan and as a consumer. That's really how I program.
No, that's a good way to do
it. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty decently. I just, it's, it's like I said, I'd love to be more bullish on the future of the business. I mean, again, newspapers still exist, right? But it's much more exclusive, as you would say, their customer base. Like, I just think it's daunting, and I think it will require people who program from that place more often, I think, just because I think audiences are more discerning, horror fans particularly. I mean, you guys have so much crap thrown at you. It's unbelievable.
We're a fickle breed for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Well, but again, like, let's be honest, you have a lot of people making these movies that don't actually like these movies. They're doing them.
And that shows, doesn't it? It shows.
So I'm lucky enough that even if I'm old now, I'm nowhere near as hardcore as I used to be, but I can get on a Zoom with a filmmaker and speak their language at base level. And, I can sing Silver Shamrock with them. Right. And so that does put me in an advantage, I think, against a lot of folks who got out of business school and were said, I don't want to be an investment banker. I want to go try to strip an actress and, go on. So it's technical terminology. I apologize to the chat. So yeah, anyway, it's pretty straightforward in assignment, but, easier said than done, obviously, as well, because again, Freddy versus Jason, just in and of itself, to give you an example, I read the first draft of that when I was a freshman in high school. I bought a copy of it at the Motor City Comic-Con for like $20 in Novi, Michigan. And the movie was released I graduated high school in 97, was able to drop out of college, intern, and work on the movie and get promoted from it in 2003. So,
that's crazy.
That should have been pretty easy. Like, it's like Blade. Like, how hard is it to develop? Like, Marvel can't figure out how to do Blade. He's a vampire who can go out during the day.
That's a
got a guy in a chair. His name's Whistler, and he goes and kills vampires.
Yeah. Not that hard.
That should show you the level of overthinking.
Yeah.
Into this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you feel like references to the Evil Dead films, there were less references to the Evil Dead films than there were, say, the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street films in the story?
Yes,
because Dynamite only has the Army of Darkness.
I'll do the second part of your finish the second part. Of course, and that's by virtue of basic mathematics. Because by the time the thing was written, you had 2 Evil Dead movies and you had how many Freddys and how many Jasons?
Sure.
Only so much you can pull.
Exactly. There's so much elements. Exactly. And of course, with Dynamite only having the rights to Army of Darkness, they can only say so much about the previous films.
Yes, which Rob was not happy with. And when we talked on the plane, they were not happy that Nick had gotten, because it was a Universal struck deal, as I recall. I don't think they got from it.
So yeah, Army of Darkness only. That's how it goes. Jake.
I think overall the comic left me definitely like I'm a big fan of all franchises, obviously, albeit like to me it's definitely like an Ash story, you know, in essence, and obviously I'm biased. Yet you managed to touch equally well on the Freddy and Jason franchises as well. I noticed a lot of references to outdoing the kills in Freddy versus Jason, which I loved. I thought, you know, overall, one question is, what were some of your favorites, favorite kills from Freddy versus Jason versus Ash? And then personally, for me, I was rereading it this week, and you know, one of my two favorites. Definitely one was Jason getting the grocery cart and kind of mincemeating the old guy. And then, you know, the classic clipboard through the S-Smart boss's mouth, kind of leaving his head hanging there.
I haven't read it in years, to be very honest. So I'm weird in the way, like, I have a hard time watching anything I've worked on.
Really?
I just see the faults. I see the stuff that drives me crazy. I'll stop. Back in the day when you had cable, if somebody like Freddy or Snakes on a plane, I'll stop for a couple minutes and just be like, oh, that's funny. You know, it's a little different now, obviously. Like Pope's Exorcist is now like it's on Netflix, it's on Hulu, it's been gigantic in home entertainment, but it's not like I'm not flipping through USA Network in the same way. So I have to go back and look. My memories of it, I particularly loved being able to do the S-Mart just as a set piece. To have Jason just terrorize an S-Mart was kind of a no-brainer. Being able to do it in winter was something that really appealed to me. Being able to have Ash against the Jump Rope Girls, that was another kind of no-brainer to me. And the killing Christmas carolers. And the other thing was killing the survivors from Freddy versus Jason in the opening scene, which was something they used to do a lot. You know, back in the day, you'd get a Tommy Jarvis, right? You'd get an Alice, but it kind of used to be like Kristen can survive part 3. But I was pissed as a kid because I loved Joey and Kincaid, and I was like, "What the fuck? Like, ridiculous!" They turned them into complete bitches, and so it was like, you know, I that was always kind of the rule. And so, to their credit, Monica Keena and Jason Ritter, and I haven't talked to Monica in a minute, but Ritter's a great dude. They're both nice people, but Ritter's I have talked with a little bit more. Like, they were ready to come back and get killed. They were all about it. I think Ritter's always been very grateful for what the movie did for his career. But those are the ones that kind of stand out. The fight on top of the ice between the final 3. And I think, you know, you brought up the idea that, it's an Ash story because he's fundamentally the protagonist, right? He's the hero. And the whole point was he was the only hero that fans would ever accept killing them for good, right? In the event you were like, and I don't presume that, like, it's Hollywood. They're always going to do, like, someone's going to come after you, go, I'm going to redo, you know what I mean? It's like the Hugh Jackman's back as Wolverine again. You know what I mean? It's how the shit works. And so, who knows how final, like Friday the 13th 4 is the final chapter, for goodness sake. And so, you know, I just, I tried to do ones that I thought, again, as a fan, what would I want to see? Like, that was always the thing to me. It is fan fiction. It is fan fiction. I don't have a problem saying it's professional fan fiction, right? What is Disney Star Wars? It's fan fiction. It's arguably less professional fan fiction, with love to my friends who work there. That's me busting your chops, guys, if you see this. So it's, you know, if someone writes I'm not a Harry Potter guy. I've never read any of the books, right? I've seen the movies once because my ex-girlfriend made me do it. And in return, I made her watch 8 movies of my choice, and I tortured the shit out of her. It was awesome. I made her watch like Drop Zone and Time Cop and just like everything. It was great. But like, if I understand J.K. Rowling is like controversial now, but if she got hit by a bus tomorrow and someone came in and started writing new Harry Potter the way they wrote new James Bond post Ian Fleming's death, like that's fan fiction. It is. It's licensed fan fiction, but it's fan fiction. So I don't have any, like, I'm not pretentious. So to me, I just like, what would I like as a fan? What do I think is entertaining to me? And I trust my gut as a barometer that there are enough people who are warped like me that will laugh and clap and be entertained by the same thing. So that sets up all those kills.
Nice.
Oh, the last thing I'd say is probably in Nightmare Warriors, being able to do the Alice giving her power to Jacob and Jacob bringing back all the like that to me was a dream to get to do, and to be able to kind of do my own riff on, you know, kind of the end of 3 and 4, really the end of 4 with them all ripping their way out of his body, and the idea that these things were, you know, good storytelling is about setups and payoffs to me, within character, within story, within action, within the action set pieces themselves, setups and payoffs. If you look, Randy Quaid, what is that? It's a gigantic payoff to something that's been brilliantly set up, right? Like you're a joke, you're a joke. Oh my God, the joke's gonna save the day. He was right all along, might I add.
The hero,
right? And he gets a great moment, and he redeems himself in the eyes of the people who disrespected him in the process, right? So like that is like, I always would tell people, if there's anybody that ever watches this and they want to write screenplays, I would always tell them, go watch Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, which is one of the greatest screenplays ever written. It was written in like 2 weeks, and it's all just setups and payoffs, setups and payoffs, setups and payoffs. It's brilliant. And if you, so that's all. Like it's as a fan, like Alice again, like Alice, you survived 2. I don't think you can survive 3. It kind of goes against the horror rule, like kind of because even like Tommy Jarvis, like 5, like it's technically, you know, had they gone in that direction, thank goodness they didn't.
Cindy Prescott over at Scream, she's hold my beer
necessarily, right? So I don't know. I believe in that. If Nancy Thompson can't survive more than 2, right? Who's the greatest to ever do it? Probably. Like I remember seeing, this is a non sequitur, but I took a date years ago to see Halloween Resurrection. There's a terror with Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks in the theater. There was a heat wave in Los Angeles. Probably the worst movie that I've ever gotten lucky after in my life. I'm sorry for the sake of the room. So it works as an aphrodisiac, apparently. And God bless that girl. But I just remember, like, and now I'm thrown why I even brought this up. I'm just reminded of the screening again. Oh, who knew? The idea of, I forgot my point. There you go. Sorry, guys. But I'm glad you all learned that I did get lucky after Halloween Resurrection. You take nothing else from this. What was I talking about right before I segued to Halloween Resurrection? Because it'll take me right back. I'm like a jukebox that gets stuck and Fonzie has to go.
No, you're okay. That's great.
He's great. Love it. Anyway, I forgot. Forget it, man. He's rolling. Anyway, though, like it's Halloween Resurrection's a bad movie. That's the moral. Oh yeah, I know what it was. It was this. I got there eventually in the end. Yeah. Jamie Lee, Laurie Strode. So Laurie Strode comes back. She does Halloween H2O, and then they bring her back in that, and they kill her like a complete. And it's sort of like, if you're gonna kill Laurie Strode, like, you know. So to me, to give Alice a big exit in a way that was worthy of being the Dream Master. Again, you're playing with continuity and setups and stuff. It's a long-winded and TMI way of getting to that point, but we got there in the end, guys, and I'm proud of it. So, good for us.
Here we are. Excellent. It seems your vision for Ash.
You're muted. You're muted on your end. I'm not hearing you.
I am muted.
I hear you.
You hear me?
I'm not hearing you guys at all.
Oh. You hear me all right? That's a worry.
I can hear everybody.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you. Yeah. Oh boy.
Well, the woman I took to the movie clearly works for YouTube and just busted me. Do you want me to log out and come back in?
If you like, yeah, that's fine.
Should I do that?
Yeah.
All right, I apologize to the people watching at home.
No, you're okay. We'll regroup. Okay, here we are. We'll bring Jeff back in a moment. I did want to cover some news just quickly at the end, so I'll go over that now. Where are we? Just regarding Red Sonja versus Army of Darkness issue 3. Dynamite have shifted distribution of the third issue, at least to Lunar distribution, and we're looking at finally seeing this issue physically in stores on July 16th. So fingers crossed there. Issue 4 is set for the following week on July 23rd, and at this stage, and with the final issue, 5th issue, expected on August 6th. So fingers crossed there. That's just regarding Army of Darkness, Red Sonja. Okay, let's see if we can get Jeff back in here.
Okay, I can hear you now. I don't know what happened.
Can you hear me now? Beautiful. Excellent. Technical difficulties. Oh, good.
No, it's clearly people involved with Halloween Resurrection not happy.
Say what?
yeah, that's it.
Anytime you get to say
string somewhere,
motherfucker, or Michael Myers.
Yeah, I had one last question. Then Jake's got one for you as well. Where was I? I've lost it.
Vision for Ash.
There you go. So now it's contagious.
It seems your vision for Ash in this story was a much older version, akin to what we later see in Ash versus Evil Dead, rather than the Ash from James Kahorik's ongoing Army of Darkness comic series at the time. Do you feel this change affected anything at the end of the day?
I didn't give two shits.
Didn't give two shits? No.
I was writing something from the movies with love to James and the run on the books at the time.
Yeah.
Didn't even enter into my thinking.
Right. Just seems like
part of what you're dealing with is if my eye is towards making a movie, I am doing the movie version of those characters, right? The most sort of the classically known version of those characters. And so I think that was the mission, right? The comic was the end result of not being able to get the movie done. So for me, it was always, where would I find Ash kind of now in present day? And, he was never particularly an ambitious guy based on Army of Darkness. With love to, and I bust James's chops. I like James a lot, but I didn't even think about it.
So one other question. Clarify something for us once and for all. Is Jason Voorhees a Deadite? Because the online debate rages on.
It's a very good. So it's funny because I didn't even set out to make that point. For me, it was the idea of, again, let's think this through coherently and logically. We're all fans here. So if we're accepting as canon let's remove the remake, but classic Friday the 13th, classic Nightmare on Elm Street, all of Evil Dead prior to the most recent the Evil Dead Rise, which I think is it in the same universe or not? I can't remember if it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ash could show up conceivably. Yeah. All right, so I mean, if in a world where that's the stuff that counts, then somebody in that Voorhees house, whether it was Elias, Pamela, speaking of things that never made it to screen that I would love to have seen, was all the Elias Voorhees stuff. Somebody in there was fucking around with it. Somehow, whether it's the Necronomicon, a Necronomicon is there. So is he a Deadite? Is he Deadite adjacent? He's clear. Here's the key. Jason clearly, post Jason Lives, becomes something that he was not prior to. He was a mongoloid backwoods killer with incredible survivability, but he was not quite. I mean, by the end, by Jason X, his mask is half baked into his face, and it's up or whatever, right?
Quite undead.
So he's like a meatball, and so I think that just is where the character had gone. So there is a dividing line there. I'm going to say that the unseen Elias Voorhees, whose feet were at one point to be seen in Jason Lives, and I think is in the books, if I remember correctly. It's been a minute. that he maybe he went to a cabin in Michigan at some point. Who knows? But all I'm saying is that it's one of those things where it's like, I don't think you can settle the debate once and for all. But if we're counting these movies as canon and the idea that there is a marked change in Jason's sort of appearance and physical MO, I would mark him as sort of almost Deadite adjacent in the sense that black magic from the Necronomicon potentially is what was used to have him arrive at that. Who knows? Again, like, who knows what they're going to retcon in that TV series by the time they're done. I don't know. Like, I wish them well with it. Like, I've hit an age where I'm just kind of like, my eyes glaze at a certain point over. I want them to do well, though. And I don't get the short film thing. Again, to me, I'm kind of interested in the, like, why not a feature if you're doing that? Is there a rights thing? Okay, if Mike Hoishington, who knows, okay, if they're canon in his opinion, then I think, I just,
Mike.
To me, I'll put it this way, they're canon to me because I couldn't have done what I tried to do had they not been in there. How's that?
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, Jason Goes to Hell really set that up, didn't it? And that's, really depends on how you look at it.
It's really kind of one of the things people still take from that movie a lot, isn't it? Right? The end of that movie and the book.
I haven't heard they used one of the same prop books from the second film, from the second Evil Dead film.
I look at it, it's like, in Creepshow, you have the crate that's supposed to be from the Thing or whatever. Like, there's a grand tradition of this. It's a tradition I may look to continue myself. Stay tuned. But I like, again, like, in a world where everyone has chased Marvel and it's just so played out at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
There's something really lovingly sort of simple about little Easter eggs that I find appealing. And I think kind of going back to basics in that way is like, there you go. So it's one of Tom Selleck's. There is an actual book. So if it's an actual book from Evil Dead, even more, it wasn't even like, let's go replicate this.
No.
It's an actual one. You have set vibes transferred from the set of one movie to the other. Thankfully, it wasn't a Poltergeist movie or these people would be dead. But so I'm inclined to say that he's Deadite adjacent simply in the sense that the book could have been other passages, right? We haven't seen every page of that book.
Right.
No.
Where is what chapter is Bring My Drowned Son Back to Life?
Back to life.
Maybe back there.
What are the index? Handbook for the recently deceased.
That's it. Well, before we move on to some audience questions, just wanted to ask you, Jeff, what are you working on at the moment? Can you tell us what you're working on currently?
So you'll have. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I mean to cut you off.
No, I haven't seen I haven't actually seen the Pope's Exorcist yet, but I do plan to.
It's
got one of our actors, Russell Crowe, in it.
Dude, hour of my time.
I know. I know.
How dare you?
Thankfully for us, enough people have seen it at this point that we are irrelevant. I don't need.
I really love to shoot them up.
I'll take it if I get royalties. So God bless. Do it. No, so we will. God, Popes has been really. I've never had a movie like it. It has really been a little juggernaut. It has been basically. I think it finally dropped out. Hold on, I'm gonna check right now. We have basically been, since it hit in a home entertainment, I think, of course it won't load for me. Hold on. Oh, no, New Zealand now. Okay, ridiculous. So we are basically been in the top 10 somewhere in the world for 2 years. Like, it's unbelievable. And so that movie, which, was really kind of my last dangling thread. I was basically going to be done making movie. I was kind of fed up with it. Now I'm sort of busier than ever. So you'll have Popes 2 will get, I think, formally announced. I'll let the studio do that, but pretty shortly. Art Bell will get, that's been out there, but will get formally announced again by that studio pretty shortly. We are working on a couple classic horror titles, but I'm really specific. If I'm going to take a legacy title, I'm doing it for a reason.
Yeah.
My preference is to make more original stuff. So,
thank
you. I can promise you that even if I am taking a legacy title, I'm kind of Trojan horsing an original thing through. It's being done for a bespoke reason. I will not.
Your hat tells a tale then.
Right. I'm a fan. Right. So I think that I'm trying to avoid. Bob Weinstein used to do this when I was at New Line, where he would go and I always wanted to get Halloween, right? Mm-hmm. And we were just talking to Sandy Carpenter a week or so ago, and not about Halloween. And excuse me, I basically I would get Malik Akkad, who I love. I would get a call every other year. Oh, they're going to let it go. We can get it to New Line. And every time Harvey and Bob really would do whatever the trigger thing was they needed to do to keep the rights. And similar to Hellraiser, where they would go and they'd say, we're going to go put him in space, right? We're going to go, they don't get whatever they have to do to keep their rights. It's not how I'm wired. And so to me, look, Pope's Exorcist is not high art, but one thing it does, and that was very intentional, is we set out to do a different sort of exorcism. I was like, I can't have a guy in the collar and he's a stodgy, it's just death. I've seen it so many times. And to Russell Crowe's great credit, he plays it with a sense of humor. He plays it with we know what we're making. We're making an 80s buddy cop movie. It just happens to be their exorcists and not. We knew exactly what we were doing. Okay. And so I think that's why it's resonated and held on. And for us, I just sort of you'll see some stuff that's classic horror with some stuff you may or may not recognize. You'll see in other Popes. Art Bell, there's a ripple effect of stuff coming from Art Bell that I can't really say publicly, that I can't get into yet, that I'm very excited by. There's and then there's sort of a middle pot that's just kind of just cool stuff. I know that Wise Guy leaked out. It wasn't supposed to leak out yet, but we are doing that, which was a great show from the 80s. We're doing the movie version of that. But there's a bunch of stuff that people don't know about that I'd rather I'll let them sort of come as they pop out. But my view is sort of, as I said, I really had been fed up on making movies. I just had really lost interest. And to Sony's credit and to Steve Burch and Scott Strauss, who are no longer there, but were the ones who really are get your ass in there and help us on this movie. I would equate it to if you used to smoke cigarettes and you took 20 years off of smoking cigarettes, then you have one, you're like, oh, I wouldn't mind another cigarette. You start to taste your own blood again. Yeah. Going through and selling Art Bell, which we had a nice sort of juicy bidding war on. And I don't know if Art Bell, for those who don't know, Art Bell was a radio host who was a legend in his day, who did from UFOs to the supernatural to so on and so forth. So we're doing that with Paul Giamatti and Radio Silence. That studio will get announced soon. And that's kind of a model in a lot of ways, because what it allows me to do is make an original genre piece, right? But using this pre-established thing that lets a studio feel, Pope's Exorcist was kind of a 1.0. They were based on a real guy. They were based on books. We're turning the volume up to 11, right? It's not real, but we're doing that, I think, across a series of real life people, including some horror related people. So my view is the business is going to continue to go through these changes. I'm going to let it ride until it's done. I've already won. I've been able to make multiple movies, including my childhood dream movie. So to me, this is house money, but we're going to go out and I'm lucky enough that my partners at 2.0, who, we were an arranged marriage on Pope's Exorcist. And we got along. The movie was successful, and so for us, it's been very fruitful. And I think, I do think we will be, I think, decent players in horror, I think is the idea here, but in our own way, very unpretentious, very, we got a note back from a filmmaker who I will not name, but a legendary filmmaker who was a fan of the Popes and sent us a note back that he was a fan of it. And the line that he used was that he thought it was rock and roll. And that's kind of what we'll set out to do. Sort of unpretentious. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what you think. I don't care who you love, right? As long as it's legal. Don't do it. Don't do anything crazy. You want to marry a tree? If it's legal in your state, God bless. I don't that's my thing. I don't care. Live your life. I want the right to entertain you. That's, I think, what our business has lost the plot to a large level, is this idea that we have any say in who has a right to watch our movies. It's like, no. We're asking you, customer, please come and take time out. It's to go see F1 in Los Angeles, $25. Okay? So I don't know where you guys are. How much is a movie to go to a movie where you are?
It's probably around
$20, but
no, for me it's probably around like maybe 15 max.
Okay, so that's competitive. $25, I can wait 6 weeks and have it in my house.
That's a good amount of money,
right? For popcorn. And what if you have kids? What if it's date night? Right? I could order Postmates, watch a movie, and like do the yawn arm move that they teach you in every sitcom in the
I gotta go to matinee so I get 20% off, you know.
Or people go, it's Wednesday. I'm sure discount Tuesday, which they're gonna hopefully make it a discount Wednesday as well. So we have these like fundamental issues. My goal, if anything, and this was really came to me during the Post experience, is like I'm trying to drag the town back to the consumer. That's really my goal. I may fail. I may just succeed only on the projects I work on directly, but that's if I'm back to make movies again, that's really the mission.
That's awesome.
All the more power to you. I just want to move on to some questions from our audience now. TN Games and Comics. Wrong. That's the second part of his question. What other characters would you like to see cross over in a comic book series?
In a comic series specifically. Okay. Well, for the good of the comic industry, I'm going to give you a decision based on the economic good of the comic industry, which I would like to see do well. Because again, to be clear, like it's over there. I'm not going to reach and get up. Like I wrote a book for DC Comics called Booster Gold. You can go buy it. It's on Amazon. I learned to read on comic books. Okay. So even though I'm not every Wednesday, or I think they've even changed the date, but like used to go every week. Like I'm not that guy anymore. I would not lie to you or insult your intelligence that I am, but I authentically enough that I can talk the talk and walk the walk. And so in my case, the single best thing for the comic industry would be a larger version of what they have just sounds like they've done again, which is going back into the DC and Marvel. I know they're doing a reprint of the crossovers of the amalgam books that they did in the late 90s, early 2000s, late 90s, as I remember it. And then they did. I don't think they're reprinting JLA Avengers, which they really should, because it was like George Perez, and it was a great looking book. I think I still have mine probably somewhere. But I think for the good of the comic industry, I have to say that would probably be a concerted effort. And again, in a world where, Diamond just went out of big, of all sorts of ripple effects on this, where people will license stuff out. Like, it's not outrageous to suggest that could happen. But, like, that's not, like, the sexiest answer. But for business, it's actually probably the best answer.
Absolutely.
Like, if you did, hey, we're going to do a 2-year concentrated shared license run of crossover books, that would be an event for 2 years that would drive people to the direct market.
Hell yeah.
Right.
I do believe we're seeing Deadpool Batman coming up.
Right. Which is like a one-off, though.
That's a one-off, yeah, but it's something.
I love Grant Wilson, who I love. I know Grant. Grant's awesome.
They've been doing some Predator. I think Predator versus Spider-Man right now. I think is one.
Yep, sure.
But that's different because that's all owned within the Disney.
Marvel. Yeah.
Right, sure. So that's easier to do. You can do Planet of the Apes. You can do Alien. Independence Day. Any of that
I think it's Aliens versus Avengers 2 right now.
Right. They can do that's all in house, so that's a little easier. That would be like doing Freddy. Oh no, you can't do Freddy now. But like Pennywise the Clown versus Superman, you could do that.
Yeah.
Y'all float down here, Kryptonian.
Yeah.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah. Let's be stretching it there. Our friend Minecraft Troller 28, he asks, do you know if does Universal have Army of Darkness sequel rights, even with the MGM split ownership?
So Ash himself was Stars, right? So I don't know who owned the Stars broadcasted. I don't know who owned the show. I only watched an episode or two of it.
I don't think they had Army of Darkness rights in that.
Right. So I'm going to assume. Again, they've been able to make Evil Dead movies, including one where Ash was able to cameo. So Army of Darkness as a title, uni, right? Like, does that mean Ash can't go to a medieval? I don't know what the limitations are. Yeah. So I'm going to assume some limitations, but clearly not. Again, the Necronomicon predates it. Ash predates. There's enough there where, to be honest with you, that like, what would you return to if you were going to go to those rites and you weren't using Ash and the Necronomicon, right? It's a medieval lore thing. Like, so I don't know that they would even revisit it unless it was in conjunction from a business point of view.
Sure.
I could be wrong, but they'll announce it, watch tomorrow, as like Army of Darkness, the musical. Or something.
You know, these things change all the time.
Like, that'll be great. Don't tempt them.
That's it. More of a statement, but I want to show this one. Mike Hoisington says he would have liked to have seen Laurie turn evil rather than get dispatched in the story. That would.
How much of Mike Hoisington do I have to deal with today?
Mike, so make Jeff come down there, Mike.
Mike. Yeah, meet me in Pacoima or Temecula. Let's go. Let's go. No, I get it's again like it's. The great thing for you, Mike, is that in a world with AI, you can now go rewrite the story completely and have Laurie go do whatever you want, and I can't stop you, and I wouldn't stop you. You have my blessing to go your own fan fiction. I don't own these characters.
No,
so you go knock yourself out, Mike.
Do some fanfic.
Be it into Koima. Oh, here he's back again. What the fuck?
Here he's back again. So, well, yes. If he wants to ask your opinion on Terrifier and how Freddy, Jason, Ash could interact with Art the Clown.
So I have a lot of respect for Terrifier. I don't know Leone at all, but I did actually, I know Brad Miska very well, and I actually went to Sony after Terrifier 2 and told them to buy Terrifier 3 before they even started shooting it. Because again, if you're a horror fan, this was so obvious that it was going to pop. Maybe not at the number that it did, but like this was so obvious that like, again, Sony would never have let them do the level of gore, but I tried hard. And again, with an only connection being Brad, just being like, this is the lowest hanging fruit you'd ever have. So in that case, I mean, does Art sleep? So if Art sleeps, then that means Freddy at a certain level gives him an advantage, right? I think Jason at a physical sort of point of view and given his regenerative powers, probably weirdly, Ash is probably the easiest out of the three, except he's like the chosen one, right? So it would be tricky. I would like a piece of the merch. But I just have like a lot of respect for the kind of, again, as someone who grew up loving Corman and Arkoff, and as like, I just like homegrown, I have a lot of respect for like Frank Zappa. I like individual thinkers, right? And so that clearly was a bootstrapped from the ground up. The people own that character, right? It's like taking a band that you find early on and you're guiding them and you watch them break out, but they don't go to the major label. They keep their independence kind of. Yeah. So I think like in horror terms, the minute he goes to sleep, Freddy has just got a gigantic advantage. But I really do like, I root for that franchise. Not like I said, I've never met the guy. But to me, that is something, it's not the first to do it. It won't be the last to do it. And it's the magic of horror. Horror does that in a way other genres do not do traditionally.
Yeah. Back to Minecraft Troller. He wants to ask, was it intentional or accidental that both the Freddy versus Jason versus Ash stories take place on or around the holidays?
I forgot the second one was a holiday to me. What holiday was it? I don't even remember.
That was leading up to Independence Day.
Okay, well, there you go. So thank you for that. So yes, so I think definitely, well, winter was always intentional. So Christmas Carolers, 100%. Because also it was a blood on snow, always cool. But like it was a fresh place to put Jason and put them all,
Sure.
really, right? It was a fresh locale, and it was a fresh way to present Crystal Lake that you in a way you hadn't seen it, right?
Yeah.
And then yes, if you're going to do Washington D.C., like that made sense. And thank you for. I didn't even remember that I did that, but yes, 100% intentional. I know myself well enough as a writer to go like, yes, that was intentional.
Yeah. Excellent. Katie asks, question, have you read the Evil Dead fan novel called Freddy versus Ash by A.S. Eggleston, and what do you think about it, if so?
No, this is the first I've heard about it, unless maybe I've seen it in like one of the YouTube. Like I didn't know until a couple years ago that people were still like so actively like guys making cartoons with their voices, figures. It's fast. I love it. I'm so flattered by it. I think it's really I think it's really cool. So no, but like I fully would support, like I think anybody, again, I don't own these characters. So to me, like I can't be protective. And I think that I look at them the way I look at like sports teams, where it's like I'm from Detroit. And so I love my Detroit teams. And even though they have like the Ford family might own the Detroit Lions, they're kind of a public trust in a way because they're part of the community. These characters are part of the community now. So even though they're bickering over the Freddy rights and Freddy really at this point kind of belongs to the people. They may not get the money from it, but like he's part of culture. And so I think that's great. The reality is like you need things that keep these characters alive. And when I was a kid, when I was in college or whatever, it was Anchor Bay doing it on DVD. Today it's Mr. or Mrs. Eggleston, was it, doing that book? That sounds like a pen name. I'm not convinced that's a real person's name. Unless is it like Twilight, or like was it 50 Shades of Grey started as like a Twilight ripoff or something like that, as I recall? And then she changed the names. Unless it's like that, where they're like, I never knew the love. A love like this until I met the Springwood Slip. It's that I can't endorse that. It's what you do in your private time. Again, I don't know.
I think we should keep that one to themselves.
Right. Who knows what's inside that chainsaw?
Yeah.
That's a tender note romance cover right there. Like,
yeah. In itself.
Yes.
One more from Minecraft Troller. Was there ever a moment where one of the 3 IP owners requested a change to the story of either the first or second Freddy versus Jason versus Ash?
Not a single time. And in fact, the first one, despite the revisionist history, everybody was very on board with it creatively. Very on board, including the ending. So that's like, with love to Bruce, I think Bruce probably just does it for fun at conventions or whatever, but like, he was literally like, I didn't even approach New Line until I had taken him to drinks to get him on board. Because he wasn't going to do it. It was pointless. It was a waste of time.
Sure. Yeah. Got one more here. What have we got? General thoughts on the Evil Dead franchise returning to New Line with Evil Dead Rise and future installments?
I mean, look,
I'm a New Line Burn next year.
I'm a New Line guy. New Line's obviously very close to my heart. We know those guys very well. I think, it's ironic given the path of getting to have it end up there. But I owe my career to New Line. So to me, New Line is still, if you're a horror fan, that is still a logo that carries a certain level of meaning, I believe. Yeah. Right. So to me, and everyone's got their favorites, and there are people, some people love Blumhouse, some people like when Juan was doing, some people like it. Everyone's got their thing. A24 has its huge, right? You hear some people, there's a term, I'm a Paul Heyman guy, I'm a Bob Shea guy, I'm a Michael Lynn guy. So you're never going to hear me they made my dreams come true. So anything that keeps New Line healthy and thriving in 2025 Hollywood, I'm going to be in favor of.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
For sure. Fluxcat collects. Jeff, your comment on defining crowd-pleasing moments in movies resonated. How do you, as a filmmaker, think things need to change to appeal to a generation that consumes 5-second content on TikTok? What a great question.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. You can stay, FluxCap.
He's in.
See, Mike Hoisington, it's not that hard. So my answer probably won't be popular, but I think it's the smartest thing. I think it would work. Okay. And I think it would. I think it's not even a question if it would work. I think it's a necessity at a certain point. The theatrical movie-going experience in general, when we talked about the ticket prices, we talked about you have a lot of challenges. One of the challenges, and I go through it myself as a guy who's like, what am I, 45, 46, which is horrifying. I like when I watch movies at home, like I'm on a second screen a lot. Okay. Yeah. Even if it's movies I have, even like I'm checking my Twitter, I'm checking email, I'm getting texted about work. You know what I mean? Like I've got stuff going on. So what I would probably suggest doing is I think that movie theaters would be wise to actually start leaning into this and offering when you have a movie come out on opening, let's say it's F1, okay, it just came out. And let's say there's a 10 a.m. screening. Now, again, not every theater can do this, but multiplexes can do this. 10 a.m. screening, and that is a traditional screening. And by the way, they should also advertise pre-screening entertainment will start at 9:45. Film will start at 10:15 because some people want to go see the ads. Other people want to get their popcorn and walk in and just go watch the fucking movie. Serve both audiences. That's really easy to do. But the second thing would be have a 10 o'clock is a traditional screening. 10:15, second screens welcome. So young kids who don't have the attention span to watch something without an iPad or their phone, like, okay, it might annoy me as an old man, but if it's what it takes to get them into the habit of going to the movies, and if a movie does its job, they'll put it down, right? And if a movie studio does their job, I remember this during Minecraft. My friend
it comes to mind, yeah.
Right? And people said, oh my God, they're going crazy in the theater. I'm like, you're idiots, okay? You should be hosting special screenings on Saturday mornings, allowing them, I'm not saying destroy a theater, but like if they want to post clips on TikTok, I hate to tell you, what's more, I'll put it this way, guys. This is something I've never understood. And movie studios do this all the time. And clearly they have research that says it's a good idea. I'd love to see the research. I don't get it. But frequently movies come out and then the week of the movie, like IGN or someone will have the first 7 minutes of a movie, right? They'll literally the first 7 minutes of the movie, 10 minutes, whatever it is.
Yeah, seen that.
Why would you're giving me literally like a significant percentage of the movie for what? Why would I go see one? I know I can.
Well, why rent it? I just saw the best part for free.
Damaging that or people posting clips on TikTok excited, even if they hate the movie, it's advertising. Spell the name of the movie right. Okay. And force TikTok to link to a ticket thing for them to purchase it. Make that part of the legalese to do it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But you've got to, instead of running from where your audience is and saying, we know better than you, consumer, you've got to meet the audience where they are. Okay. And like your consumer has spoken, and we can sit here and like, keep our head in the sand. But like, if a movie does its job right, they're going to put the shit down for the moment, or they're going to be capturing the moment specifically to see everyone going, yeah. And giving you that, right? And so I think there's a happy medium while still serving the audience that doesn't want, I don't want it, okay? Right. But I also recognize unless I hook my niece and nephew, we're fucked. They're not going to be movie theaters left, right? So it takes a little of both. It takes the single Alamo Drafthouse that has a full bar for adults. It takes the restaurant theaters, but it also, I think, takes probably leaning into the fact that you have people with second screens.
Yeah, sure, it's evolving with the times, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. If anyone does anyone else have any? I think FluxCaps appreciates your answer.
Look at you, baby. Who loves you?
Excellent. I think does anyone else have any other questions? Now's your chance. Otherwise, I think we've taken enough of Jeff's time today. Excellent, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining us today and for your insights and for your contributions to our favorite comic series as well.
Thank you guys, and like I said, any fans that see it, it's all you can hope for when you go into any creative medium is that one of the there's the commercial box office test, and that is important, but there's the test of time as well. And I've been really lucky that I've worked on a few movies that they've lasted, and that's really what I'm about. And so to me, this book, it has lasted. They've lasted.
Yeah, 18 years later, yeah. Or 17, 18 years later, yeah.
Fans and to people like yourselves that have kept it alive. So I'm very grateful. I love, like I said, I was so thrilled to see all the YouTube stuff that people have done with it. I hope it continues. And like I said, we don't get to do this unless fans go to the movies and buy these comics, etc. So allow me on behalf of Hollywood, which doesn't say it enough, to say thank you to the paying customer. We appreciate you, and we will hope you will keep enjoying our entertainment as we continue to provide it for it, because in fact, we are here to serve you and not the other way around.
That's awesome. That's what I like to hear. That's great. Awesome. Well, we do hope to see and read, but more importantly, see, I guess, more.
You need to watch my latest movie, you.
Yes, absolutely. That's my homework. That is my homework. All right.
All right. Don't buy it, so I got a royalty. I'm kidding. It's all good. You will see. Right. There are two very clear Elm Street, very intentional. Yeah. Completely intentional Elm Street nods in that movie.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll keep an eye out for those. Excellent.
One's really obvious.
Yeah.
And the other, you guys are fans. You'll catch it.
All right. Eyes peeled. All right, well, Jeff, just hang around for a moment after we leave live, and but I just wanted to touch on some news quickly. We did talk about Red Sonja versus the Army of Darkness and the delays earlier while Jeff was sorting out his audio issues. So hopefully we'll have no more delays with those release dates. The second volume of trade paperback of Tony Fleece's Army of Darkness Forever has a current release date of August 27th. And also the long-awaited Army of Darkness board game from Dynamite and Lynn Vader is also set for September 24th, but we're not holding our breath there. Has been delayed several times over the last few years. Please join Jake and I every Wednesday on Instagram and share your favorite Ash and Evil Dead and Army of Darkness covers with the hashtag Ash Wednesday, representing the Ghoul Division. Thank you as well to all those watching today. We'll be back soon with more groovy creator interviews for all you primitive screwheads. Until then, hail to the king, baby, and remember, stay away from camps with the death curses and that every town has an Elm Street. Later.
Thanks, guys.
And we're clear.
I'm just going to keep frozen like this.